Welcome to HDNet World Report. I'm Greg Dobbs. In this program, we'll take you to prison. It's not a prison where society's toughest criminals are locked up, or where you'll find foreign terrorists who might be a menace to American security. And it's not a prison in some exotic, faraway land. No, we are going someplace no more exotic than the state of Georgia, to meet someone probably no more dangerous than any teenager you'll see on the streets wherever you live. But this one teenager, with what amounts to a lifetime sentence, seems to be a model for both what's bad and what's good in the life of young Americans. We went to Georgia and could hardly find anyone who thought that the bad outweighed the good. This bungalow in Douglasville, Georgia, about a half hour outside Atlanta, is Genarlow Wilson's house. But for now, this medium security wing of the Georgia State Prison in Forsyth, Georgia, is Genarlow Wilson's home. It has been for almost a year and a half. And he will be locked up here for 8.5 more years if his conviction for a crime that he didn't know was a crime, and a crime that the Georgia State Legislature recently decided is no longer a crime, stands. All this for going to a New Year's Eve party in this Douglasville motel room when he was 17 and having sex with a not quite 16-year-old female classmate. Oral sex. By all accounts, consensual sex. But in the eyes of the law when it happened, criminal sex, which made Genarlow Wilson guilty of aggravated child molestation. Didn't you know it was wrong?
No. I mean, I didn't know sex was wrong, and I definitely didn't know, being with someone 2 years under me could cost me 10 years in prison.
10 years in prison, then the rest of his life as a registered sexual offender. The harsh price of a one-night stand at a wild party in Georgia. These are probably typical teenagers in Douglasville, Georgia. Most know each other. Most go to the same high school. Most in their spare time don't have a whole lot to do. But what they probably have in common with each other more than anything else, and with their peers in every other part of the country, is this. According to neuroscientists, teenaged brains aren't fully evolved. It will come as no surprise to parents of teens that they don't always reason well, or make wise judgments, or control their impulses. In short, they think they're bulletproof.
As much as we tell them, it's so hard for them to believe that something bad will happen to them. That's why teenagers drink and drive sometimes. That's why they don't always wear seatbelts. That's why they don't always use protection when they have sex. It's because they have a difficult time feeling like something bad could really happen to them.
And that's at the root of the personal tragedy of Genarlow Wilson. On the eve of New Year's 2004, at the age of 17, he just didn't use his head because he had no idea that something bad could really happen to him. Wilson was one of 14 kids, all 17 or younger, who rented a pair of adjoining motel rooms here at the Days Inn in Douglasville. Rooms 136 and 135. There would be sex, booze, pot, and rock and roll. Some of the kids in these two motel rooms had intercourse. Some had oral sex. One girl, still 3 weeks shy of her 16th birthday, performed oral sex on 6 different boys, voluntarily. And as if that isn't shocking enough to most grown-ups, it was all captured by one of the partygoers on videotape. A tape that was used in evidence in the case that would change Genarlow Wilson's life forever. Can you believe you allowed a video camera to be used that night?
I can't believe it. It was stupid. Like you said, sometimes teenagers do stuff that make them seem like they don't have brains. But, you know, I didn't have knowledge of it until really the next day. You know, that's just the influence of alcohol.
They are so comfortable photographing themselves and posting photographs of themselves on the internet that almost like videotaping and recording their everyday activities is like another dimension of their everyday reality. They're so accustomed to it. They're so accustomed to seeing each other on the internet, seeing each other on TV, that it isn't that big a leap for them to videotape themselves in intimate situations.
But in this case, it was more than just intimate. It was an act of sodomy, and it was criminal. The age of majority in Georgia is 16, which made Genarlow Wilson and the other boys at the party legal adults, while the girl who performed oral sex on them was still legally a child, which was a surprise not just to the boys, but to their parents, especially when the 6 male teens were charged with a felony, aggravated child molestation.
It's not being taught, it's not being addressed, it's not something that they flash on the news, you know, and not even on the teenage stations.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, nobody is making a movie, you know, about it. You get movies, you know, not to rob, shoot, kill, you know, sell drugs. You know, they have advertisements, say no to drugs, but nobody is saying, you know, you have abstinence laws, you know, where, you know, they advertise don't do this and don't do that, you know, protect yourself, use condoms, so on and so forth. But, you know, nobody's saying, okay, well, you can go to jail and get a life sentence for this. It's not being advertised at all.
Here at the Douglas County Courthouse, which is in the heart of Douglasville, 5 of the 6 boys eventually took a plea bargain. What that meant was, whether they thought it was fair or not, they were admitting their guilt as child molesters, but would spend just a year in jail, not 10 or more, which a trial might deliver, although they would still have to wear the label sexual offender for the rest of their lives. Genarlow Wilson refused to take the plea. He fought the charge, and he lost.
That was my whole reason for, you know, not taking the plea. I mean, I just can't live with the label. You know, I couldn't live with it then, I can't live with it now.
You might have to.
Yeah, but I really don't think of it that way. I'm prepared to fight forever, how long it takes.
This kid really didn't do anything that other teens aren't doing everywhere. Whether we like it or not, teens are engaging in consensual acts of sex and oral sex and other acts. This was not a violent case. This was completely consensual and voluntary. And how you can send to prison someone for 10 years with no parole and label them as a sexual offender for the rest of their life when they didn't do anything that a high percentage of kids are doing is insane.
But that's exactly what happened. Genarlow Wilson was convicted and sent here to prison for the mandatory minimum sentence, 10 years, with the requirement that he register all his life afterward as a sexual offender. In court at his sentencing, he pleaded with the judge one last time. WSB-TV News in Atlanta carried the story.
I also feel that I am not guilty because I am not a child molester.
19-year-old Genarlow Wilson says he refused to take a plea deal in his aggravated child molestation case because it would have ruined his life.
Me having to register as a sex offender and anybody that sees me will label me as a child molester.
Wilson and 5 other teens were caught in this videotape having sexual relations with a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old girl. The teens say the sex was consensual, but prosecutors say a 15-year-old can't consent to sex. 5 of the teens pleaded guilty and are now behind bars. A jury reluctantly convicted Wilson, and a judge read his sentence.
The sentence will be 11 years with 10 years to serve.
The judge said he had to follow the law in handing down the sentence. Prior to that, prosecutors explained why they were for the stiff sentence.
His acts were criminally wrong, morally wrong.
But while Wilson told the judge he's not a child molester, the law said otherwise.
Bye.